Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending upon where you are in the world. My name is Dan Hunt, and this is my incredible wife, Patty Hunt, who is back from the sickbed for video number 2 of our series of 4 videos on the law of attraction. Really, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about positive mindset. We're talking about doing things better and all of those kinds of things.
So, let's get started. This is for you if,
Keep
I
going.
hit a wrong button. If you failed at learning the secrets that the successful and the wealthy have learned, it's not your fault. If you have fear that you can't be successful, then this is for you.
You know, also, if you only feel you can pay tens of thousands of dollars to go out and, get this, guess what? You don't really need to do that.
Right. And we actually did that. So, we, excuse me, we actually did that. We spent 10 years and tens of thousands of dollars, probably more than that. I don't want to admit to it, but,
Yeah.
Learning what we needed to do to change our lives.
No, Patty, how about going to events? That's another big one. A lot of people go to events and they get all charged up and they are like ready to rock and roll.
Right.
But then they get on the airplane, they go back home, and they have no idea what to do.
Those motivational events. Now, look,
I know.
we've been to some.
We do some.
We've been to a lot of them. Let's
Yep.
just say that. They did help with motivating. But what we have found and what we've learned from so many people is, what do we do now? And that's what we're looking to show people.
So, Patty, talk to us about what the goals of today's webinar is.
So, look, today's webinar is really simple, and I want to be really real. We talk to a lot of people. We have a number of programs that we've done. We have worked with large teams of people, and we really are looking to help people get to that next level, whatever that is. So for Dan and I, maybe you've heard our story and maybe not, but when we met, we hated our careers. We didn't have enough money. We were really, really struggling in so many areas of our lives. So why didn't we make a change? And a lot of that is based on fear, and we're going to talk about that today. We're also going to talk about proven step-by-step, our proven step-by-step system.
And, it's really important to note that this is a proven system. And it does work, and it's step by step. And it's, as we traveled around the world and we were building the programs and the speeches that we give around the world, the number one thing that people said to us all the time is, I don't know where to get started.
Right.
I don't know how to get started. I don't know where to get started. Well, we're here to tell you today that this is the place to get started. And, Patty, as an educator for, 20 years, high school teacher, high school science 9th grade teacher. Okay, so now you got the worst subject in high school. You got the worst kids in high school.
Yes.
Well, okay, for everybody else, science is, it was one of the toughies.
Yeah,
okay?
absolutely.
9th graders are the most difficult people in the world to deal with. We were all one ourselves at one time, and we all have had them.
Yes.
So they are the most difficult people in the world to deal with. They get better, trust me.
Some do, some don't. Yeah, we get better.
But what I'm trying to make the point here is that every single day, Patty has put together these programs, and she keeps I'm ready to kill myself because she keeps jumping on, well, is this easy enough? Are people going to understand this? Are people going to really be able to relate to this? And that's what you do so well, is bring it to everybody's level.
Right, and that's the teacher in me, working in a classroom of 30 kids, sometimes the lower struggling kid to the gifted kid, and everything in between. I knew, and taking that information into how could we help people, I knew we had to put it in those terms that people could actually go out and do it.
Yes.
But, let's talk a little bit about who we are. And again, I tell a little bit about our story. Dan and I got together 13 years ago, and 8 years ago, Dan became very ill. He had West Nile virus and meningitis, and he almost died. And so you realize how precious life is and how precious time is. He was in his 50s, and we were looking at, dying or possibly not being able to fully recover. Now, thankfully, you could see he has fully recovered, and the issues that came with it. He was unable to work for a whole year. So in not being able to work, we were financially devastated. Well, you get to the point in your life where you've worked really hard as a teacher and a professor and working in the entertainment industry as Dan has, and you think, okay, what now? That's really where we were at, and that's why we're here, putting it out there that our story may not be exactly the same as yours, but I think most people we talk to can relate in some way. And what I'm going to encourage is don't wait till you get to that point where, life has passed you by or you have a really horrific situation happen.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about Patty. And we already talked about she was a teacher, 20-year teacher. She got her master's plus 45, which is like more education than a doctorate would have. And you're really, really into, processes, and she understands how to put these programs together. I will be the first to admit there's times where I might talk a little bit over people's heads. Now, I was a college professor at Villanova University. I taught film. I didn't teach science. I didn't teach math. I taught documentary filmmaking. But it was a very successful program that we built at Villanova University. And, working with kids and teaching kids, it really means a lot.
Now, before we go on, actually, I want to, you talk about a professor and teaching documentary film, and how does that apply? Well, the one thing that he brought to those students, and I just want to say, they were 15 hand-picked students, so they were the top of the top. But even though they were the highest level of Villanova University, their belief system wasn't necessarily where it needed to be. So Dan walked into class and said, we are going to produce a documentary that's going to be in contention for an Academy Award, and he was then laughed at. But he said, if that's not the mindset here, then why are we doing it? And if we're not doing it that way, then we're out. And I do have to brag that documentary was in contention for an Academy Award. It was very successful and, really, really meant a lot. But what I'm saying is he brings that to this, space of being able to create, a course and helping people to understand they have to change their mindset to get everything that they want.
So our slideshow died on us,
It did.
But that's okay. We're going to just keep rocking right on through because we know this material.
Yes.
We've done it so many times. So, the next thing that the question that people really ask us all the time is really, how does this apply to you? You're talking about mindset. You're talking about changing your mindset. We're going to talk about fear today. In video 1, if you haven't seen video 1, the link for it is the green box right below here. There's a green box. That'll take you back to video 1 where we talk about your own personal GPS and doing a self-assessment. So that's what we did in video 1. If you haven't seen it yet, you want to click the green button right down below us, and that will take you back to video 1 so you can see that. So how does what we're talking about today apply to you?
First of all, take a minute right now and decide if in your life you really are happy, you really are satisfied. If you're young, think about being 50 or 60 years old. Are you on the right track? That, for a lot of people, we hear that comes up, financial, money, but think about your relationships. Think about, is the career you have, are you excited about the job or career? Think about the situation that we were in, that Dan and I were in. What would it be like if you found yourself looking death in the face? So does this apply to you? If there is some area of your life you're not happy with, then yes, this applies to you.
I have to say that positive thinking truly changed our life. I had West Nile virus. I was almost gone. It's amazing that I'm even here today. But I really believe the change in our mindset is what got us through all of those things and why we're so excited about everything.
Right. Now, I will say that when we talk to people, sometimes they say really positive mindset that, and again, we're getting really raw here, really honest here, really straight.
Right.
A lot of people want to change, but they just keep thinking about what's holding them back, why they're not doing it. We're getting really straight here. We felt this way. We were like, all right, there's nothing we could do. How are we going to improve our lives? We had lost everything,
Right.
almost the house, but everything else in between. So we can relate to that. But why didn't we move forward? Why did it take us a little bit of time? And what do we find that holds people back?
Why did it take us to a life-altering event that we didn't do anything?
Right.
And so we always ask the question, what is holding you back? And the number one thing that holds people back, and you can go on the internet, look it up, there's studies all over the place, is fear. Fear is the number one thing that people have, that they have a problem. So, so many people think, I'm not capable of being successful.
Oh, yeah. That was me. That
true.
was big time me.
And what do we say to those people now?
You know what, again, and maybe wherever you're at, thinking about where we're talking about, that yes, you can be successful. We turned our lives around. We went from losing everything. We didn't lose the 5 credit cards that were charged to the max.
To the max, yeah.
We lost everything else. Now we have since been able to pay those off. We've been able to travel. We've been able to be with grandkids and all of the things we want to do. So what turned around, I think for us, it was like, okay, I am done suffering, and I've got to take a leap, and I've got to try something. Because if we're capable, you are too.
Now, the other thing that people say to us all the time, and it still comes back to fear, is, what if I fail?
Wow.
What if I fail?
Yeah.
How do I deal with it if I fail? And that's a big one.
That's a big one. And getting on and doing a Facebook Live, again, I'm being real right now. So getting on, doing a Facebook Live, I would get on and do a Facebook Live, but only be able to put it out to certain people, or I would talk to certain people. I'm telling you, fear of my family and what they might think of what they were doing. Now, I'll be honest, it's been almost 10 years, and there are probably still family members that have no idea what we're really doing here. Some we haven't even asked. I don't know how they feel about it. I don't know that they're on board with it, but that's really hard to get past. What will my colleagues at work think?
Right.
What will whoever think?
And you're saying that what will my colleagues at work think? That's another real big one. And we have this with our own kids.
Absolutely.
They have this fear of doing something they really want to do because they're afraid of what will people think.
Right.
And that's something that really you shouldn't really care about what people think.
And that's easier said than done. I want to break it down here. There's 3 main things that hold people back. Here's the teacher in me.
Okay, here's the teacher coming out.
I got to get it back out.
I know. I went to me, though, on the camera. I was going to do this part. But that's okay. We'll let you do this part.
This is where it's not scripted. It's really not. So, people think I can't. They're afraid to be successful. That is a fear. Think about if that applies to you. They're afraid of what people will think about them. Think about if that applies. And they fear failure. And this is all things that Dan and I can totally relate to. Now I'll let you go from here.
You'll let me go for a second? All right, so let's come back to the 2-shot of both of us. But, we talk about the fears and fears in life. And you had a pretty big fear about what are the parents going to think when you had your teacher conference night. Mm-hmm.
Back to school night.
Back to school night. What are they going to think? What are they going to do? How are they going to feel about it? So I want you to just take a second and tell your story. And I usually tell this from stage, and she gets mad at me every time I do it. So today we're going to let Patty tell her own story about when she was a teacher and parent-teacher night. We've all gone to parent-teacher nights, all of us that have kids. And even when we didn't have kids, when you were a kid, you hated it because you didn't want your parents to go see your teacher. And, then all these parents come in and
Right.
talk about your experience there.
So people would say, well, you're a speaker, because you're a teacher. And I would look at them shocked because I got to the point where I was able to speak in front of kids. They have to basically sit there, whether they listen or not, that's up in the air. If they really misbehaved, I could send them out of the room. So I got comfortable with the idea of speaking in front of students. Back to school nights every year, fear doesn't even begin to explain it, I was petrified. So I would convince the other teachers on the team that we should do this together so I get hide behind them. Because in a group of 8 teachers, there's going to be that one person that wants to be in front of the room, wants to talk, and I let her have it. She could do it all she wants because I was petrified in speaking.
So I'm gonna like go back. Now, you didn't die, right?
I did die. I thought I was going to.
And I gotta say that while she was still a teacher, we were at an event that I was backstage at, and I was speaking with Bob Proctor, who, a great gentleman, and, we personally have learned a lot from Bob. But I was speaking with Bob Proctor, and we were going through some things, and he had a book, and he signed a book for you. Mm-hmm. What did he say inside that book?
In the book, because I had started thinking about this idea of getting on stage, but again, I was petrified.
Right.
And he signed the book, and he said, get up on stage now. Again, your mindset that you could do something.
I got to tell you, we came back to Pennsylvania. I think we were in Arizona for that event. Mm-hmm. We came back to Pennsylvania, and we went to an event in Pennsylvania, and it was the very next weekend. We went to an event in Pennsylvania, and the guy that was running the event walked up to Patty and said, the person that was going to open up this event today didn't show up. So would you open up the event for us? And I really believe this is all about mindset, because that's exactly what happened.
And again, I just want to be clear. I was scared to death. I was like, oh, no, I'm not ready. So just to be clear, neither of us are saying it's quick, it's simple, it's easy, you need a system, but it takes work.
Right.
While I was scared, my hands were sweating, knees knocking, I did it, and I survived, and have spoken in front of
Now we have traveled around the world public speaking. She's been in front of extremely large crowds and extremely small crowds. So, and look at her now. I mean, here she is in a television studio, working in, by the way, this is the new LOA studio here in Las Vegas, Nevada. You can see the skyline of Las Vegas, Nevada. We are actually here in Las Vegas. So let me talk right now about a case study on fear and on public speaking. And it's one of the things that I do a lot when I'm on stage and I'm talking on fear. What I do is I grab somebody in the audience. I ask this question. Who's afraid of public speaking? And usually about 90% of the people raise their hand and say, oh, I'm afraid of public speaking. And I look out in the audience and I find that person that is more petrified than anybody else in the whole audience. And I walk out on stage, out into the audience, and I bring that person up on stage with me. And this is what I call my fear of speaking experiment. Patty hates it when I do it because she never knows what's going to happen. But this particular case that I'm talking about, there was about 1,000 people in the room. And this young lady, maybe 24, 25 years old, her name was Julie. She looked petrified. I went out into the audience. I brought her up on stage, and I let her have the microphone, which I very rarely let somebody have my microphone. Don't take my microphone and don't take my clicker. But I gave her the microphone, and then I just started talking to her, and she answered into the microphone. And that doesn't sound like a very big thing. I mean, her hands were shaking. She was really, really having a hard time with it, but she pushed through it, and she got a standing ovation at the end of that. And when she got that standing ovation at the end, something clicked inside that girl. Because I got to tell you, we saw this woman at an event in London, okay? We were in Pennsylvania or New York. And we saw her in London, And we had just come off stage. And who's standing backstage? But Julie. She was the next speaker after us. She had built herself an entire team of people in a network marketing company. She had built herself an entire team of people. She looked completely different. She had lost 20 pounds or so. Her makeup and hair and everything was perfect. And I got to tell you something. It was a whole new woman.
Right.
It was a whole new woman.
Now, I just want to say here, we've talked a lot about public speaking. That is, if you look, one of the number one fears. Some people would rather die than public speaking. But by no means is that the only thing. So if you're just looking to, say, change your career or
Yep.
have a better relationship, whatever it is you're looking for, this applies. So just take a minute and think about, what would you change if you felt like you could? What would be that one thing? And when we talk to people from all over the world, they always have something that comes right to mind.
Right, right. Fear, and I think we have a slide for it down the road, but fear is an acronym for it, is false evidence appearing real. We build these fears in our mind, and they appear very real to you.
Right.
But, you know, standing in front of that group of parents, standing up on stage, standing in a television studio, all of those things are not really that difficult.
Right.
Now, there's
Oh.
naysayers. No, my turn.
Okay.
There's naysayers out there. You can answer them. I know there's naysayers out there, and I know that there's people out there that sit back and they say, you know, I'm really not able to go outside my comfort zone. Okay? I'm really not able to go out I am not capable of succeeding. I know other people can, but I can't keep, you know, I really am not ready to overcome my fears. People say these kind of things to us all the time. All the time. Mm-hmm. Julie did not know she was coming up on stage that day. She did not know. She didn't have a clue.
But she would have said, no, I can't get outside my comfort zone. No, I'm not going to be successful. I don't think I could overcome this fear. She would have said
Right.
all these things when we talked to her. Those were the things that she said. Now, in answer to that, yes, and a lot of you are going to the negative, and so did we. There were times where people said you could overcome your money situation, you could have a better life. Imagine what it would be like to be able to be with the grandkids, to pay for those kids' weddings. We have 4 kids that are now married. We are on our 8th grandchild with one more on the way. If you had talked to us 10 years ago, we would have said, no, we're just going to give up. So we can relate. So whatever fear it is that came to mind, whatever you're thinking, stay with us. Think that there may be another way.
Now, you know, a lot of people also ask the question, does this really work? Does this really work? I got to tell you, in video number 1, again, which you can get from the green button down below, we talked about Brian, and we told Brian's story. What a success story this guy had coming through, and it all started with his self-assessment. We've talked about Julie, and Julie changed her life from overcoming that fear to being up on stage. And then, you know, Patty and I almost lost everything, and we changed our mindset. We got rid of our old ways of thinking, and here we are, you know, a lot better off.
So I guess the question now is, who is ready to take their life to the next level? Who's ready to say, you know what, I don't know what the path looks like. I don't know if I could do what Julie did or Brian did or Dan and Patty did, but I'm willing to try. And that's all you have to do, is have that open mind and that willingness to say, I've got to do something.
Now, this is a series of 4 videos for the launch of what we're calling the LOA system. Now, we're not selling on these videos. We're not asking you to buy anything. Put your checkbooks away. Put your credit cards away. We're not asking you to buy anything. What we're asking you to do is take the time and go back. If you haven't listened to video 1, click the green box. Go back and listen to video 1. If you're here on video 2, listen to video 2. Now, on Sunday at 6 o'clock Eastern Time, okay, we're going to introduce video number 3. And video number 3, we're going to talk about habits, how to create new habits and how important habits are in people's life.
So we're going to give some real tips on what you could do to get started.
Exactly. But the number one thing that you can do to get started, and what we are going to do to help you get started, is if you haven't already done this, and some of the people that are on this webinar have done this already, but some of you haven't. Patty and I decided to put together a series of 21 videos. They're 30 to 60 seconds long, and we call them happiness tips. And each and every day, you'll get an email with a little video in it with a happiness tip. What does that do for you?
And here's the thing. People say, well, I'm busy. I have a career. I have kids. I have this. I have that. I don't have time. It is literally 30 to 60 seconds. And while it's a short period of time, it's very impactful. Listen to this video while you're getting ready in the morning, making your coffee, driving to work. And when you practice these happiness tips, by starting your day more positive, you then are capable of having a more productive day. So as simple as this sounds, it really is impactful to starting you down the road to creating whatever kind of life you're looking to create.
You know, it brings to mind our great kids. And we have 8 of them now, and 7 of them have gone through that stage of taking their first step. You know, we were in San Francisco when Carter was there, and we were holding on to him, and he's taking those little steps. And what we said with these happiness tips is, it's the first step. It's free. We're giving it to you. We took the time and put these together. All you have to do is click the yellow box below, put your email address in, and they will start coming. They'll just start coming to you every single day, every single morning.
Now, it's up to you to open them and listen to them.
Right. It is
I
up to
hate
you.
to drive that home, but the teacher in me says, look,
Well, and guys, we know. We know when you are opening them and listening to them, because we can see it. And
we lost our
video, but that's okay.
Okay, so
we're just
talk
gonna
through it. We're wrapping this up, so we're at the end. Let's just talk about, first of all, take a minute after this video and decide what in your life you would like to do better. I asked this question of people, and I'm going to ask you, what would it be like if you were laying on your deathbed thinking back on your life? Do you see yourself being very satisfied and happy, or do you see yourself full of regrets? That's a great question to take some time and ask yourself. If you don't feel like everything's wonderful and you're happy and things are going exactly as planned, then you need to take this step. And again, the link for the happiness tips is free, but it's up to you to open them and practice them.
And it's right in the yellow box down
Yellow
below.
box.
The green box will take you to video 1. The yellow box will take you to the happiness tips. We want to thank everybody for joining us on this video. Now remember, this video is only going to be available for a few days. So if you haven't watched the whole thing, you want to get it in and watch the whole thing, because it's not going to be up for a very long time. So I want to thank you all for joining us. Patty, thank you so much for doing everything that you do with this program. And we look forward to talking to you on video 3, and that will be available this Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. That would be 3 p.m. on the West Coast.
Thank you all, and we look forward to seeing you again.